Hello, dear colleagues. It's 3 minutes before the start. Please find the chat box, and in the chat box, in any possible way for you, put yes, plus if you hear and see us well. And if it is possible for you, please type where you are from. What town or what city or what region you are joining us. I see pluses. It means that you see us. I see Kiev. Hello from Kiev. Hello, hello. It's Kiev here. Zhytomyr. Zhytomyr is joining. Uman is joining us. Odessa. Dnipro is joining us. Ternopil, Kiev, Lviv, Odessa. Czech Republic. Wow. Kyiv, Odessa, Lviv, Poltava region, Nikopol. Nikopol, take care, please. Zdalbuniv. Poltava-Lebanon. It's interesting. Kherson, Baranivka, Nizhyn, Chernigiv region, Kryvyi Rih, Zhmerenka, Volodymyr. Wow, again, as usual, all parts of the country and even from abroad. I'm happy to see all of you here. It's 1 more minute. Khmelnytsky, Cherkasy region, Gorodische, Poltava, Khmelnytsky, again, Dnipro. People are joining and joining. Uzhgorod, again, Cherkasy and Kiev, Chernigiv. Ivano-Frankivsk region, Lutsk is joining us. Kremenchuk is sending the best wishes, and we are sending back the best wishes to Kremenchuk. Vishnevo, Odessa, Kharkiv. Kharkiv, please again take care. Take care, dear Kharkiv. Kiev, Kherson. Again, Kiev, Sumy. Sumy, take care, please, take care. Priluki, okay, hello. Hello from Kiev. Hello, hello. Well, it's 3 p.m. Kiev time. It's high time to start. Again, hello everyone who has already joined and to everyone who will be joining or will be watching the recording of our conference. I'm Inna Nistaiter, Macmillan Education Ukraine representative, and today is our day 2 of spring conference devoted to teaching young learners, teaching communication to young learners. At the very beginning, I would like to say few very important things. The first thing, I would like to express gratitude to our defense forces for the fact that we're able to come and join here. The second thing is, please, in case you have an air raid alarm in the place where you are, please make sure you are in a safe place, because your safety is first and foremost. Don't worry, this conference is being recorded and you will receive the recording in any case. And finally, I have great pleasure to introduce our first speaker. If you're not the first time with us, you probably remember Anna. She is a big friend of us. She loves both Ukraine and Ukrainian teachers in particular. And I promise you will never regret that you will join us, because Anya, the audience is yours, and I'm personally looking forward to your session.
Thank you so much, and welcome everybody. I am so honored to be here with you today, and I'm very grateful that you found the time and the possibility to join us, because we are going to talk about teaching today. And I specialize in teaching young learners, so I am going to share with you some of my practical ideas of how I teach, and let me see. Okay, how I teach, and many practical tasks that work for me in my classroom. Maybe you will like them and that will work in your classrooms as well. On everyday basis, I work at the University of Łódź and I'm a teacher trainer there. I prepare my students to do the most important and most beautiful job in the world. And so I, together with you and all my students who will become future teachers, I hope, we are trying to change the world for the better, one student at a time, because that's what teachers do. And today we are talking about communication. Okay, so what I mean is real communication. I'll try to explain what I mean during the session. It's going to be a little bit fast, but don't worry because it's recorded and all the tasks and ideas that I have and you might miss, then you can see them later on. Okay, so so let's start. Let me know that you see the presentation. Yes, okay, lovely. Thank you so much. All right, so off we go. We are talking about unlocking real communication in a young learner's classroom. But definitely we need to establish first what we actually mean by talking about communication. So first, we are going to look at what communication is. And then we are going to look at lessons that specifically focus on speaking and communication. And then we're going to look at other lessons that do not focus on speaking and communication, but they offer the opportunity to squeeze in some speaking or communication, those being the most important skills that we develop in our students. And finally, we are going to find something for everyone in the classroom so that everyone is included and nobody feels left out, regardless of their level of the language, of cognitive development, social abilities. We need to include everyone because this is our classroom, our kingdom, where we have our students that we need to sort of hug all of them at the same time. So that's the plan for today. And I hope I'm going to squeeze in an hour, but if I go over the limit and you feel tired, you just shout, Ina, you shout at me and do something, come in, say something so that I know that I should be finishing, but I hope I will manage it within the hour that we have. So starting with what it means to communicate. Now, there is this common misconception in a language classroom, especially. Sometimes we think that I sometimes go to teachers, in-service teachers, to observe their lessons, and they tell me I'm going to do a lot of communication. This is going to be a very communicative lesson. And I sit there for those 45 minutes, and for some reason, I don't see the communication happening. Yes, the students are speaking, but that's not communication. Because there is a major difference between speaking and communication, okay? Speaking is a skill, it's a productive skill. Yeah, out of those four, so we've got the productive skills of the receptive skills of listening and reading, and the productive skills of speaking and writing, so it's just a productive skill. Speaking means producing language, yeah? So when a student is producing language, he's speaking, but he's not necessarily communicating, okay? Because communication is something much, much more complex and much more advanced cognitively. And it's also much more useful, okay? And something that we are using in everyday life is much more of communication than speaking, okay? So what conditions need to be met for an activity to be called communicative, okay? So there is this very famous model of communication which sort of explains why communication is so complicated, okay? So I'll try to just explain it quickly for you, not to like put too much theory into the presentation, but what I'm going to show you is the model of communication. And so in any communication that we have in real life or in a classroom, we need at least two people, okay? So if you talk to yourself, it's speaking, right? It's not communication, okay? Communication requires another person to at least listen to you and react, right? The reaction doesn't have to be verbal, it can be non-verbal, but you need to sort of get in contact with someone for the activity to be called communicative, okay? Now, that's not enough, okay? Because two people together in one room can sit and say nothing, okay? So what do we need? Well, we need one person, the sender, to have some information, okay? And to try and push this information to the other person, okay? But that is also not enough, okay? Because if you are sitting at a lecture like now, and I am talking to you, now and you're just listening, there is no communication between us. Okay, it's me speaking, but I am not communicating with you yet. Okay, for communication to happen, another thing is essential. It's the feedback. Okay, so the other side, the receiver, needs to do something. It can be verbal, it can be an answer to a question, or it can be non-verbal, but it needs to be a reaction to whatever I say. Yeah. So because we've got a very not perfect channel of communication, it means that the feedback you are going to give me is in writing mostly. So you're going to react, and it may be verbal, but it's not going to be great. In a classroom, you can make it much more complex and much bigger. Thank you. I love the t-shirt, Maria. It's my favorite. Okay, so we have the information. It's pushed to the receiver. The receiver gives a feedback. That's not enough, because the information and the feedback have to be given in a code that is mutually understandable, okay? Which means that the sender and the receiver speak in the same language, okay? The language they understand, okay? So it doesn't have to be the same language. For example, if they are bilingual in Ukrainian and English, then one person can speak English and the other can speak Ukrainian if they understand each other mutually. But there must be this understanding. So if I started talking to you in Dutch, not that I know how, but if I could, then probably we would not have communication with most of you unless you speak Dutch, right? So the code. And another thing is a channel, okay? The perfect channel, the ideal channel is face-to-face, always, okay? That's because apart from the verbal communication, you also have the non-verbal communication, and all the little gestures are sort of lost. So a part of the message is lost if the channel is not face-to-face. This one is perfect. Less perfect is what we have. So you see me, but I don't see you, okay? So if you fall asleep, unfortunately, I won't be able to see that. Okay, so I'll keep talking, and you might not receive my information. There will be no communication, right? In a classroom, luckily for us, after COVID, we have mostly face-to-face communication. And if we don't, we can have a communication via internet with the students, but we can at least see them. So we can see some body language that they produce as feedback, for example. Okay, so the channel. But there are two elements that are essential, and they're very difficult to recreate in a classroom. And the first one is the communicative need, okay? Nobody, now you need to trust me, nobody ever says anything to anyone else if they don't have the need, right? Even if you are going down in an elevator with a neighbor from upstairs and you start a conversation about the weather, okay? So it's a meaningless conversation, but there is a purpose, okay? The purpose is to fill in the silence, okay? That's uncomfortable. So you're filling it in with something. So there is a purpose. There is always a purpose for communication. And this is the challenge. It is in a classroom, we are always in artificial conditions to create the communication need. We can tell the students, okay, imagine we are in a restaurant. Imagine you are a waiter. Imagine I'm a client, okay? We can do that, but obviously we are not in a restaurant, okay? And they are not waiters, they are not clients. So it is kind of, yeah, it doesn't feel right. Fortunately, when you work with young learners, they are very good at this pretend play, okay? They have very good imagination, and they have a lot of practice with pretending that they are somewhere or they are someone. So we are using their natural ability to fit in different roles and to play a role, to act out, right? Because this is something natural for them. So for us, with young learners, it's the easiest thing to do. Later on, it becomes more and more complicated because it needs to be a little bit natural. And we are in a classroom, okay? So it's not natural. So the communicative need has to be there, okay? Now, I will... so I'll describe a situation. Consider a situation, okay, in which communication might happen, right? So these are all the conditions essential for communication to happen. Will the communication happen? Okay, consider my husband. Okay, I'm sitting at home with my husband and I can see that the rubbish bin is full. Okay, so I produce information to my husband. The rubbish bin is full. This is the information, okay? The code is the same because I am giving this information to my Polish husband in Polish, right? And so he definitely understands what I'm saying. He understands every word that I said, okay? And the channel is perfect because we are face to face, okay? I have a communicative need, right? I want something to happen, right? And he gives me some feedback, okay? And he says like, yeah, okay, you're very observant or whatever. Is communication happening? No, because I did not achieve the goal, right? I had a need, I had a goal, I wanted the rubbish out of the house, it didn't happen, okay? Why not? Because the last element of communication, the last condition that is essential for communication to happen, and by far the most difficult to recreate in a classroom, is communicative desire, okay? So a communicative desire is the situation in which we want to communicate with each other, okay? I want the rubbish out, I want to communicate it to my husband, but he's not so willing, yeah? He doesn't have the communicative desire to understand what I'm saying, yeah, to take this rubbish out, yeah? So I'm left with it. No communication happened between us, right? In a classroom, it sometimes happens, like I'm sure you remember from your lectures at university that were not entirely fascinating, yeah? That the teacher was there, he was producing a lecture in a code that you could understand. They were saying things like, the students are saying things like, yeah, so there is some feedback. The channel is perfect face-to-face or online like that. The teacher has a communicative need because I need to deliver a lecture. I am paid for delivering lectures. And yet no communication happens because the students have no desire to listen to me. Yeah, there is not going to be a communication between us if the students do not want to learn, okay? And this, again, is very difficult to recreate in a classroom because we need to create a condition in which there is both the need to say something and also the desire to find out. Yeah. So it's a situation in which you have some information and I really want this information. And this is the single most difficult thing to recreate in a classroom, the genuine, real need for communication. Okay. So very often, regardless what the teachers say, what they do in the classroom is not communication because one of those, especially one of those two elements is missing, either the desire or the need to communicate. So it seems like communication, but not really. So the communication is not genuine, it's not real, okay? I'll give you an example. So let's consider some activities and you will tell me, plus or minus, whether this activity is communication, okay? How about giving a prepared speech? Is that communication or not, do you think? No, excellent. This is not communication, this is speaking though, right? It's a speaking activity. A speaking activity in which a student produces some speech, but there is no communication, okay? Because there is no desire to listen usually, right? So the student is producing something, nobody listens to him, okay? So giving a prepared speech is not something that is communication, okay? Let's try another one, okay? How about giving instructions so that the rest of the class can react with movement? So the student says, put your hand up, stand up, turn around. Is that communication? Okay, interesting because now it's not so easy because people have different ideas, but this is communication, okay? It is a non-verbal response communication, but there is communication, okay? So the student says something, the rest of the class don't know what's going to be said. The student says, put your hand up. And I have to, as a group of students, I have to think of what he wants from me and react with the right thing to do. Okay, so this is communication, yeah? We communicate. Your response is not verbal, but because you do the thing that I wanted, I know that you understand what I said. Yeah, we have communicated. There is communication between us. Okay, a tricky one. Okay, let's try this one. How about describing a picture in a textbook while other students look at it? No. Okay. Now you're unanimous, okay? So everybody knows. Now, this is not communication. And I want you to remember this one because I'm going to show you this activity that will occur in materials because it is a very good activity. It's just not communication, okay? Well, the fact that something is not communication doesn't mean that it's wrong, right? It's a very good activity describing a picture in a textbook while other students look at it, but this is a speaking activity. It's not communication, right? Because if everybody sees the same thing, well, there is no need for communication, okay? Maybe there is a desire, but there is no need. A simple way to change it, we are going to look at the different ways of changing speaking into a communication. A very simple way to do that is when the student describes a picture in the textbook while other students don't see it, okay? While other students have to draw it, okay? Picture dictation. So a student describes a picture and the rest of the class draw the picture. Then that's communication, okay? Although, see, it's again non-verbal response communication. So they are drawing. But because they are drawing exactly what I'm saying and we compare the pictures and say, yeah, that's exactly it, it means that we have communicated, right? That we have achieved the goal. Somebody said nicely in the chat earlier on. Yeah, so that would be communication. If everybody sees the same picture, there is no communication, but it is a speaking activity. Okay, let's see another one. How about writing a dialogue in pairs and acting it out? Is that communication or not? Okay. Yeah, I have expected those answers. So there are like two people so far, or four people. Four people so far that have a different opinion. Now, DS, writing a dialogue in pairs and acting it out is not communication because it is already written. It's a reading activity. Okay. If the students talk with each other before, then the phase before writing it down is communication. But once it's written down and then they just act out what they have written, it's not communication. It is a speaking activity, yes, okay, or reading if they are keeping the text close to themselves. But yeah, they can write it down, then close the notebooks and try to recreate the dialogue from memory. It is still not communication. It is speaking, a very good speaking activity, but not communication, okay? If you act out a dialogue and it's scripted, no communication, just speaking. Okay. Okay, and the last one, I think. Improvising a dialogue with many examples of new grammar, on the other hand. Yes. Okay. So this one is clear. Okay. Yes, this is communication, right? Now, the fact that you have to focus on many examples of new grammar makes it a little bit artificial, but because you are improvising the dialogue, your partner doesn't know what you're going to say, even if you are using present simple or present continuous. Okay. Yeah, you might be using present continuous all the time, but I don't know what you are going to say. And this condition that I don't know what you're going to say makes me curious, okay? So it makes me willing, it creates a desire to listen to you, a desire to communicate, okay? And you have a need to tell me something, which are the two conditions that make communication possible, okay? Now, all those activities that are communicative, that are genuinely communicative, real communication, have one thing in common. And this one thing in common is information gap. Okay, communication can only happen, only and exclusively, if there is an information gap, right? If I know something that you don't know and you want to know it, okay? So if we both know the same thing, there is no communication, right? So come to think about it, when a teacher talks to a class, it is very rarely communication, yeah? Because the teacher always knows the answer. So when I'm asking for an answer from the students, like, what's the weather like today? This is not genuine communication because I obviously know what the weather is like today, okay? But in a classroom, in pair work, you can create conditions in which the students have half of the information, for example, or they have some information and the other person really wants to know what the information is. Now, this is the greatest challenge, and this is the job when you want to teach genuine communication in a classroom, okay? So we are looking at information gap mostly today. Okay, so I'll show you a task that teachers typically say is very communicative, but it's not. Okay, so imagine it's a class of students that's I don't know, class 3 maybe. Class 3 is a good example. Okay, so the students have been learning together in this school for 3 years, and a new teacher arrives and says, okay, I am going to make a revolution here. We are going to have highly communicative lesson. We are going to communicate all the time because genuine communication is important. Okay, so the teacher says, okay, so today's lesson is going to be only about communication. Okay, let's talk. And then he writes on the board 3 very important questions that are like the first questions when you meet somebody. Okay, so they have a potential of being highly communicative because they are very useful, right? So the 3 questions that you ask when you meet somebody for the first time. Can you think of a question or 2 maybe? There are 3 of them. It's like the super 3. What do you ask somebody when you meet them for the first time and you are 8 or 9-ish, 10-ish maybe? A kid. Yeah, what's your name? That's it. Okay, I'll add this on after Olena. Age, very good. After Natalia, I'll go, how old are you? And the country. You're perfect. You're very good. Okay, where are you from? Okay, what's your name? How old are you? Where are you from? And they are genuinely communicative activities, but in very limited context. Okay, in the limited context of first ever meeting someone somewhere. Okay, so if you are coming into the classroom and it's grade 3 and the students have already learned together for 3 years, and you tell them, okay, ask your friend about those 3 questions, it's like, what's your name? For real? I mean, I've been sitting with this friend of mine for 3 years now. I pretty much know her name. Okay, so sometimes when they're especially cheeky, the students turn to their friend of 3 years and they ask them, Hola, what's your name? Okay, or Adam, what's your name? Okay, because they think it's funny, but that's okay because it's not a genuine question. Okay, how old are you? Seriously, I mean, we are in the same grade, so we are the biggest difference between us maybe probably 1 year. Okay, more or less. Okay, where are you from? Well, if this is like a general school in the neighborhood, we probably are from the neighborhood usually. Okay, so or we at least live at the moment somewhere around the neighborhood. So they are not genuine questions, but you can turn it into a genuinely communicative activity very easily. Okay, you just give them, somebody wrote that about the masks, right? Who did that? Oh, okay, Zana. Yeah, it was like yeah, that you sometimes have the masks that you're using. You can ask them to make business cards. Okay, I was like let's make business cards, and those business cards will be of I don't know, the figures that you know. Okay, the younger the students, the less advanced the figures. So they may be like cartoon characters. Okay, I got these ones. Okay, so they write the name, the age, and the place. Okay, and then they walk around the classroom and then they can ask each other the questions, right? The flags are perfect for countries. That's a very good idea of Diana. I've got this one. Yeah, so you've got the name and the age, and you have to ask each other questions, right? So what's your name? And I don't know because you chose your name. So now we've got information gap. I don't know who you are, and I want to know. I want to ask you the question, therefore, right? Because I'm curious what you wrote on your business card. That's a very easy way to make it really communicative, right? Because otherwise they are not generally communicative. Okay, let's have a look at lessons whose focus is specifically speaking or communication. Okay, so sometimes when you've got a course book or whatever course book, every now and then there is a lesson that is labeled speaking and communication, or speaking slash communication, or whatever. And well, these lessons are heavily dependent on developing this particular skill, right? So I will tell you again, but I'll just make this remark here. There is no such thing as a lesson devoted to one skill only. Okay, it's impossible to make a speaking lesson without vocabulary. Okay, it's impossible to do a writing lesson without reading. Yeah, so there is no. It's not possible to make a lesson that is labeled like this. I will do only this. You won't, because it's just naturally not possible, right? So it's the focus, okay? So there are other activities there, but the focus is on speaking and communication, okay? Like, for example, a lesson that is devoted to this real world communication. Whatever coursebook you're using, you're definitely going to have every now and then a lesson that practices the real world communication. Simple sentences. All the examples that I'm using today are based only on the first level of the coursebook. So for the youngest students, the easiest ones. So we are looking at real world communication task in which students are going to order food, like in a restaurant, for example, okay? So we are showing them what the conversation might look like. Yeah, so like a real world communication could look like. We show them the dialogue, okay, how it works. Then we show them that it's polite to say please, thank you, such things, okay? And we could also show them how it works. If you've got an example, I hope it works.
Do you want a burger?
No, thank you. I want eggs and beans.
Do you want a drink?
Yes, please. I want orange juice.
Okay, so that's absolutely nothing much, but it is a real life child at their age, speaking English as a native language, ordering something, making it plausible, making it like making it believe you. Okay, if you say, okay, this is how you order food in an English speaking country or in English, simply they say, all right, yeah. But then you show them the girl and says, yeah, this is exactly how she did that. Okay, so then they practice that, okay, and they can do the same. But in this particular activity, they're making a dialogue, a new dialogue, okay, and this is communication because they are not recreating the same thing they just saw. Okay, so yes, she wanted, do you want a burger? No, thank you. I want eggs and beans. Do you want a drink? Yes, please. I want orange juice. But now it's their turn and they can say something else. Okay, so there is a choice. They can ask about sausages. They can say that they want French fries, that they want sunny side up or whatever, peas. There is a choice. The choice is limited because the children are small and cognitively they are not that developed. And also linguistically, they don't have a huge choice, right? They don't have many words to choose from, but we are giving them some choice to make this information gap happen, so that this is a genuinely communicative activity and not just speaking, not just acting out the dialogue, but changing something in the dialogue in a way that you cannot expect what the other person says. Well, you can expect to some extent, but you don't know for sure, okay, what they're going to say. Okay. And there are also some activities that are focused on speaking that are aimed at the exam preparation. If this is something that you are dealing with in your work, either in a public school or in a language school, there are exams for young learners learning English, and sometimes the course books also have the materials, and there are activities that also practice speaking. Okay, so in this activity, we've got the first part is a listening, where they have to listen and place the different objects in the picture. But then there is a speaking activity, okay? Now, I want you to see that this is a speaking activity because what they are going to do is point at the elements in the picture. So this is the situation that we had in the quiz. Students are describing the picture that everybody can see. Okay, so they are both looking at the same picture and they are pointing and asking, what's this? Okay, it's a horse. Yeah, what color? It's a sheep. What color is it? It's white. So because they see it and the questions are always the same, this is a speaking activity, right? For practicing speaking, perfect, right? But if you want to change it into a communicative activity, the easiest way is to change the order of the questions, okay? So instead of pointing at a particular animal in the picture and asking, what's this? You can switch it to an activity in which first we are asking questions of like, what color is it? It's white. Where is it? It's next to the tree. And then we can guess, what is it? Okay, now when we can guess, then we don't know what's being described. Here is the information gap. So the boy is thinking of some animal. The girl is thinking about some animal. The boy is asking questions in order to guess. Okay. So finally, if he doesn't guess, he can ask the final question, which was the first one in the example. What is it? But yeah, so it's like a guessing game. If it's a guessing game, it creates information gap. It's communication, right? If you don't know Mizu, I highly recommend Mizu to you. This is a free of charge web page for everybody. Anyone can go and find themselves a chatbot. Okay, they are tiny little programs, AI based, that will interact with the student. They are fully safe. Or whatever information is there is just for a split second. You can do it in the classroom, or you can ask the students to play with that at home. I made one for you, especially for this presentation. So my Mizu friend is called Sam, and this one is for introducing ourselves, right? So I told him my name, and then he asked me where I lived, and now he's asking me about hobbies. And the thing that I like with my students best about those chatbots is that you can play what they say, and it's in nice British or American English. You can change depending on the bot that you choose. But there is the pronunciation is really good. Okay, it's a proper pronunciation. And when you answer, you can write it on your keyboard, but there is this microphone down below when you can see it. And if you press the microphone and your computer has this possibility, you can record what you want to say. And I find it most interesting because if you don't say it well enough, the program will not interpret it well, and then the chatbot will say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't fully understand what you mean. Can you say that again?" And they have to say that again, and they have to repeat that many times before the bot can actually understand what the child is saying. Okay, which is very good pronunciation practice for them. Those chatbots are made by teachers, and there are chatbots for absolutely everything. So I chose the one for introducing. They're also divided into ages. So we can choose different stages, and you can have more advanced chatbots for some other questions, subjects, whatever, talk about culture of Britain or some specific topics that they are trained to answer. And they're always very friendly, super friendly. So whatever you say, and the information gap is always there because you have no idea what the chatbot is going to say. Okay, and then you have to react to whatever the chatbot said. So if you've got students who are IT techs, that's a good idea to introduce Mizu to them. Okay, have a look. It's really fun. Okay, so that was when the activity of speaking or communication is the focus of the lesson, but it's not always so, right? Sometimes we've got activities, lessons, where the focus is on something else. Say listening or reading or grammar, yeah, or vocabulary. So these are the major focuses of the lesson, okay? But as I said, it's not possible to make a lesson of only one system or one skill. And also, every single lesson should have a speaking activity. If not communicative, at least a speaking activity, okay? Because speaking and communication are the most important skills that students need. They're like survival skills, yeah? So if they don't learn to write really well, that's fine. There are a lot of machines that will help them. But if they don't know how to speak well, it will make their life more difficult. We learn language to speak. Okay, we very rarely learn a language to read. Okay, we learn it to communicate with other people. So every single lesson should have this element. So we are going to look at lessons whose focus is not speaking, but where you can squeeze the speaking into every single element. Okay, starting with the very first lesson of a unit where you are introducing vocabulary. Okay, so say you are introducing a vocabulary of farm animals in this example. So you are showing students the flashcards of different animals, and you can show them the word cards for different animals. Okay, and well, the lesson within the lesson you only have activities like repeat the word, okay, or say what's play magic eyes, yeah, things like that. So it's mainly training the vocabulary, the pronunciation of the words, the names of the objects, such stuff. But because we need to have at least one activity in every lesson that is speaking or communication, we can go for speaking, okay? And we may do activities with the flashcards that are focused on farm animals. So my beginning of a sentence. Remember that we are still thinking about level 1, so the students are really small. And I want them to learn a phrase, on my farm I've got. Okay, and I've got such ideas for activities, some of which you may know, and some maybe you would like to try out in your classroom. So the ones that I like best is the chain, okay? So you take a ball and you throw to the students, and all these flashcards are on the wall or on the board or wherever, and you tell them, on my farm I've got a duck. They can't be like one by one, but just to be there, okay? And the next person says, on my farm I've got a duck and a horse. And the next person says, on my farm I have a duck and a horse and a mouse or whatever. So we are building a chain, okay? The younger the children, the shorter the chain will be, okay? They will start forgetting. But the important aspect of this chain, like neuro-linguistic aspect, is something that's called anchoring, okay? You associate a word with a person. So at the beginning it's easy, but when it comes to like the 5th word, you can't remember anymore, but you are looking at the students who said the words and it somehow comes back to you. Okay, so this is the same situation when later on you are writing a test and you say, okay, I know that the answer to question number 2 was on page 21 at the top right corner, but you have no idea what the answer was. Yeah, but you exactly know where it was, where you could anchor it, right? But you can't remember. So this is something like that, and language works like that, and it's good to have those anchors. Yeah. If it's anchored, it's more likely that the word will be remembered, okay? So I've got one that I do one thing in common, okay? So we put the flashcards on the wall or on the floor or however, and the students are taking 2, okay? And they are saying what they have in common. And because they are small and it's the first level, they don't have much to say, but they go with sentences like duck and a bird and a mouse are small. Okay, or I remember one student said a cat and a dog live in the house. Okay, a chicken and a horse are brown. Okay, so one thing that they have in common. Okay, a selection. So you put the cards face down, okay, and you ask one student to come and select like 4, 5, for example, and he shows them or puts them on the board, and he says, on my farm I've got, and he names those 5 animals. Okay, on my farm I've got a cat, on my farm I've got a dog, a mouse, a cow, and a horse. Okay, and the rest of the class, looking at what he has on his farm, they have to say, you haven't got on your farm, and they have to say the remaining animals from memory, okay, because they can't see them. And we are trying to recall as many as we can. Okay, and you can repeat this activity, which is usually fun. Spin the bottle, I like very much. If you've got the conditions like a carpet area or whatever, where you sit the students around in a circle and you put the flashcards face down in a circle, and then in the middle you put a bottle. Okay, you swing the bottle, and wherever the bottle stops and the cork points a flashcard, the student opens the flashcard, and then depending on the level of the students, they can say, on my farm I've got a cat or a chicken or whatever. Or if the students are more advanced, then you can say that every time the bottle comes to the same picture, you have to say a different sentence. Okay, so it's good for revision, for example, for the end of the year revision. So when the first student sort of gets to the chicken, he can say, on my farm I've got a chicken, but a few turns later somebody else gets a chicken and they have to say, a chicken can run, because the sentence, on my farm I've got a chicken, is already taken. Okay, that needs to be a new sentence, depending how all the students are and their language level. So these are all speaking activities. Okay, but you can also move to communicative activities, and for communication I've got the phrase, have you got a? Okay, because it's a communication between 2 students, so we need to have a question, right? So one that I can suggest is guessing the farm animal. So you are giving out 1 card per student, okay, a picture card, and then they hold it, and then you're trying to guess. Okay, have you got a duck? Have you got a hen? Okay, and if you've guessed, you get a point or whatever. Or they walk around the classroom, and if you guess what your friend has, he has to give his card to you. Okay, and the winner is the one who collects most cards, for example. Okay, depending how good the students are and how mature cognitively and how developed linguistically they are. But you can do that with not only the first grade, but any grade that you have. It works with many students that I had. Okay, perfect partner. Some students get the pictures and some students get the word cards. Okay, so they mingle, they walk around the classroom and they try to find a perfect partner. So if I have a word card and it says cat, I'm looking for a cat. Okay, so I'm walking around the classroom saying, have you got a cat? Have you got a cat? Have you got a cat? Okay, and somebody who's got a cat is my perfect partner. Yeah, and we sit down. Another one is guessing by description. So you are basically describing an animal and somebody has to guess which animal it is. We can ask questions that are specific for the lesson. So for example, the WH questions, right? So we've been practicing, what color is it? Where does it live? Okay, what can it do? Yeah, so we are asking those questions and the person who's got the picture card answers those questions, and if we guess, we get a point. Okay. If the lesson is grammar, on the other hand, so the previous one was vocabulary. Now let's see what happens when the lesson is grammar. Okay. Now when the lesson is grammar, you don't typically associate it with speaking, but the major theories say that the best way to activate grammar is the immediate creativity. Okay, so you've just taught some grammar and immediately we are putting it in action. Okay, and it's great to put it in action in a speaking or a communicative activity. Okay, so in this particular case, we've got a grammar lesson in which we are going to teach and learn, this is a goat, but that is a sheep. Okay, so in this activity, the one that is proposed in the course book, we've got a task in which we look at the picture, we point and we say, okay? Again, we are all looking at the same picture, which makes it a speaking activity, not a communicative activity, right? Because we all see the same thing, okay? And the students say, oh, this is a cat, but that is a cow, for example. But we can change it easily into a communicative activity in which we can, instead of pointing and saying what it is, try to quiz the partner, right? So you quiz the partner saying, okay, number 2. And the information gap is created by you not knowing what your partner is going to ask you about, okay? So if I say number 2, you say that's a sheep. But if I say number 8, you have to say that's a chicken. This is a chicken. Okay, because we are practicing this is and that's it, that is. Okay, so I say 7, you say this is a horse. Okay, I say 1 and you say that is a cow, right? So here we've got this this element of surprise, okay, which is information gap in this particular case. So the activity that is designed for this task is speaking, but if you have time or if your class is advanced enough to do that very quickly, you can turn it into a communicative activity to make it more challenging for the students. Okay, another one, another grammar. Grammar 2, so it's like the same lesson but further on. Here we are teaching where are the goats. They are behind, in front of, between, and next to. Okay, so you're probably teaching it same way as I do when you're teaching the concept on your hand. Yeah, you're teaching the concept on your hand. Let me see. Something is behind, in front of, on, in, right, next to, between. So that's how we do that. But then we've got this activity in which you can put it in action. Okay, so we've got those activities that are called talk partners. Okay, and they are specifically designed to evoke this information gap. So I have half of the information and you have the other half of information, or you have all the information and I have none, but I need your information. Okay, so in this task, the students have, they are cutouts from the activity books. They have a farm and little animals in pairs. Okay, so you've got different pairs of animals and you are putting them in different places on a farm. Now, one person puts it, the other person asks questions, and tries to recreate the same picture. Okay, so it's a picture dictation, clear information gap, classic information gap activity, okay, in which the students do that. Communicative. Okay, what happens if it's writing? If it's writing, it again creates the opportunity for communication. Okay, so in this writing activity, what the students have to do is ask the questions, answer the questions, and draw the picture. Okay, well, you can do it on your own, but then it's speaking. Okay, that's less advanced, but you can turn it into a communicative activity in which you put the students in pairs and you say, right, I want you to think of some animals. Okay, think of a pair of animals. Okay, I'm going to ask you questions. Okay, and you are asking questions to your partner. Okay, so if you're thinking of one of those three groups of animals, what are they? Okay, and your partner is saying they are horses. Okay, so you write down they are horses. Okay, and what color are they? And your friend says they are brown. Okay, and yeah, generally the idea is that you communicate with each other and you're not talking to yourself because it tends to be unhealthy. Okay, so yeah, so definitely you're trying to communicate with the other person because it's a clear opportunity for communication. Okay, it just asks to be used as a communicative activity. Okay, and then the person, you may draw the picture. Or if you've got students that are not that good at English, instead of writing down the words, they can draw the animals in the picture, and then they exchange their activity books and do the same with the other person. Usually fun. Okay. What about a revision? This is a revision activity in which the students are revising the prepositions and the names of the farm animals and the grammar that they've learned so far. So the speaking activity that is designed for this one is where are the ducks? They are next to the sheep, but it's a memory game. So you're looking at the picture, then you're closing the book, and then you're asking the questions. So where the ducks, we have to recall where the ducks were. Okay, so that's definitely a communicative activity because you don't know what your friend is going to ask and whether this is something you actually remembered from the picture. Okay. Okay. So we were looking at speaking activities which are the focus of the lesson, and we also looked at activities that are not the focus of the lesson, but the potential is there in every lesson for them to occur. Okay. Now, so I told you that it is very challenging to create conditions in the classroom for real, genuine communication, right? But we can do it, especially with young learners. An even greater challenge in the classroom is to include everyone, okay? Because the classes are not, one-to-one. There are students in the class and the students are very different, okay? And we would like to include everyone, okay? And especially with the youngest students, it is a challenge because their attention span is short and because they are very different at various levels, okay? So they are different at the level of their cognitive maturity, language ability, social skills, lots and lots of different elements overlap for them to be different. And that's beautiful because, a classroom cannot be homogeneous because that would be very boring, right? We've got different people in the society and the classroom is a tiny little society. Yep. So there are different people in the society of our classroom and we need to cater for everybody. So something for everyone. First of all, we need to catch their attention, okay? Do something that they actually listen to us, especially if we want to introduce something as complicated and as independent as communication, okay? Because there is going to be some mess. There is going to be a little bit of noise, okay? Now, if the noise is in English, it's perfect. I always tell that to my students. Yeah, don't worry. Don't worry about making noise as long as the noise is in English. You just, stand there and admire that your students are actually speaking the language, okay? Because they're tiny, they don't have to. It's not something that they need to do. They could communicate with their friends in their native language, and yet they do the effort. Yeah, they go one step forward for you, usually, to make you happy, so that this is actually done in the language that you teach, okay? So something for everyone, catching attention. I've got a set of attention signals that work for me. Some of them you're probably using, but I just wanted to share those that I like using with my youngest learners. So somewhere age 7, even younger, if you also teach a little bit younger. Okay, so they are, I call them calls and responses. Okay, calls and responses. So you have to agree with your students that whenever I say something, you say something back, and this is how we are going to establish that this is a moment everybody looks at me. Yeah. So my favorite, all-time favorite, is class yes. Okay, it's perfect because it's very simple. Okay, now here the idea is that the teacher says class and the class says yes. Okay, now the trick is that they have to say yes in exactly the same way I say class. So if I say class, class, they have to say yes, yes. If I say oh class, they have to say oh yes. Okay, so they have to pay attention a little bit. Okay, so that works really well with the youngest learners, even younger than 7, but I really, really recommend this one because it's very simple. Also, we've got this hocus pocus that probably you know, everybody focus. Okay, so you can pretend you've got a magic wand and say hocus pocus, and they say everybody focus. And then you have like 5 minutes of undivided attention if you're very lucky. All right, you can say 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, and then the students say 1, 2, eyes on you. Okay, you need to pre-teach it. Okay, they have to pre-learn it. Or macaroni and cheese, everybody freeze. That's a very American one, but if you like that context, you can do that. Everybody freeze means like nothing is going to happen. Like when they are on task and you want them to stop, this is something that you can say. Okay, they can stop the activity and come back to you with their attention. Okay. Another way of helping them with their attention span is using the energizer and the focus and the calming mindfulness techniques. Okay, so I'm going to show you like a fragment only of the energizer because we are talking about speaking and communication. This is something that you play before the speaking activities, but I would also encourage you to look at focus and the calm. They are available on YouTube online, so you can try them out. They are activities that, well, I have to be honest with you, because when I saw them for the first time, I was not a big fan. I thought that it's not something that might work, and then I was very surprised that it did. Yeah, I used the focus with my students and it worked perfectly well. Okay, and I tried the energizer not so long ago and it also worked. I haven't tried calm yet, but feel free, they're really nice. Okay, the energizer looks like this. Because of the lack of time, I'm going to show you just a fragment so that we can fill in now.
Today, we're going to do some rainbow breathing.
Oh, you can do that.
We're going to paint a rainbow with our hands. Make sure you have enough space. Let's sit up. Put your feet on the floor. Arms by your sides, palms facing forward. You're going to paint a red line using your hands like paintbrushes. Breathe in and raise your arms, keeping them straight. Breathe out and slowly bring your arms down. Great! There's the red. Let's make the orange. Breathe in, arms up. And breathe out. Arms slowly down. Brilliant.
Okay, so if you are skeptical like I was, I really recommend it to you to try it out in the classroom because it does work. And it is, for me, it was very surprising, but it was a very pleasant surprise that it did work. It was absolutely great. And the focus was even better because focus is a little bit more complicated, but it really is perfect. Okay. Okay, and so the last thing we talk about with those students, including everyone in the classroom, is the diverse classroom. So as we said, in your classroom, there are students with different skills, different abilities, different maturity levels, different social skills. And so we need to include all of them in the class. So some of the tasks that we are doing should be adjustable. Okay, so you should have the possibility to make it less difficult and more difficult depending on who you're working with. Okay, so say, remember this grammar activity in which we were saying that something was this is and that is in the picture. You can print out an additional activity, something for everyone, where you've got like a helping page for that. Okay, so if it's very difficult for someone to understand the concept, or sometimes you've got like whole classes like that. Okay, sometimes it happens to me that the whole class 1A is very well developed in all aspects and they work really fast. But there is 1B who is not that well developed, not in English, but generally in the cognitive maturity and stuff. And so I am choosing less difficult options for them so that they can catch up with the other ones. So you can use like an additional activity that is going to help the students do the same activity, but in a different way. Okay, so the activities that have those Venn diagram, yeah, the overlapping, yeah, that we can find a place where we all fit. In our classroom, everybody fits, okay? So for example, when you're doing a reading activity, it's a reading lesson, the focus is reading, I mean, and we are acting out the story. And as we said, acting out the story, acting out the dialogue or a story is speaking. It's not communication, but that's okay. It's a very good speaking activity. And in this one, there is like a routine that the students are put in groups of as many characters as are needed to act out the story. And then we've got students in tiny groups that also differ. Okay, now in this particular activity, they differ in their social confidence. Yeah, because we tend to think about mixed ability in terms of someone is better at English and someone is worse at English. But at the first stages with the very youngest learners is very rarely the difference depending on the language. Very often the difference depends on maturity, cognitive maturity, social maturity. And here we are taking care of the students who are socially less advanced, okay? So they are less confident to speak, not in English, in general. They are just more shy, okay? So we cater for them by giving them roles that are less vivid, okay? That they have to say less. They still take part, but they are not threatened, okay? We don't tell them to give a huge speech in English. We give them a small role for the start, okay? Then they will develop. But at first, we don't threaten them, okay? And also, because all these activities assume that we are supporting, yeah? So we are focusing on supporting the students who can't do something. But sometimes we forget that there are also students who are very good they're very mature. They're very good at English, okay? And they also need to be challenged. They also want something to learn, okay? And everything is too easy for them. So not forgetting about them is also a challenge for a teacher, okay? So if you got an activity like this, here we are practicing grammar. We've got an information gap, classic information gap activity. We also have some tips to include the students who have the potential of getting higher, okay, of reaching higher, of being a little bit better. So we are making the same activity as for everyone, a little bit more challenging for those who seem to do very well in this standard version, okay? So they are ready to go a little bit up, okay? So take care of those who are having problems to catch up with the standard, but don't forget about those who are already a little bit over the standard. They also need to be included, okay? Lovely. So today we talked about communication and speaking, and what I would like you to remember to sort of when you're planning your classes, when you're looking at your students in the classes, to think of those 4 things that we were discussing today, we were focusing on, and develop communication, okay? Develop speaking because it's important, but also do the communicative activities, make them real, make them genuine. That will be especially interesting for those who reach higher. Focus on talking, whatever the lesson is, okay? Whether it's grammar or vocabulary or listening or reading, squeeze in some speaking or some communicative activity so that they don't have this feeling that this is a lecture on descriptive grammar, but it is something that is going to help them learn to speak English, okay? And use every opportunity. So whenever you can, whenever a task shows an opportunity, shows the makings of a communicative or a speaking activity, use it, okay? So that the students have the opportunity to say something, to communicate with someone else and see whether they are understood by the other person. Okay, and the last thing, include everyone, okay? Try not to leave anyone out, whether it's a less achieving student or the reaching higher student. Neither of them wants to be excluded from the lesson. They all want to learn something, they really do. Thank you so much for today.
Anya, thank you so much for your wonderful session. Very practical with very simple ideas. Most of the schools, not all of them, but most of the schools are having spring break now. But I'm sure after the break, our participants will try at least one of the activities and one of the ideas. But I believe they will try all of them or most of them. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And we have a couple of minutes to become closer. I mean, we as the speakers and the participants. Anya, will you please let me share my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. I will share my screen now. Okay. So I have a very simple and very short quiz for you. In the chat box, please type the answers which are true for you so that all of us feel that we are more or less in the same boat. Okay, most answers are 3 lessons per week, but I also see that there are teachers who have 4 or even 5+ lessons a week. Great. My next question is, do you teach large classes? Okay, you know that our reform means that we don't have specialized schools right now, and most of us don't have this luxury to have 10 students or 14 students. Only in private schools you do have this luxury, and you're really happy. And I see that up to 20, 27, both. So some classes are split into groups and some not, 25, 27. There is a number of teachers who don't teach large classes, and they're really happy teachers. My next question is silly. Silly because we know that no two students are the same. Do you teach mixed abilities, or again you are a lucky teacher who has this more or less homogeneous groups? Okay, I expected that most of you teach mixed abilities. Do you find it difficult to get your young learners focused, especially when they are in grade 1? Is it a challenge for you? Maybe not difficult, but a challenge. Sometimes no, yes, yes, sometimes sure, okay. The next question is very provocative from my side. Does it take you more than 20 minutes to prepare one lesson for your young learners? Okay, 45 minutes, no more. I see answers more, about 30, 40 minutes sometimes. Yes, sometimes. Very cool. Thank you very much. I see that, again, we do have a very mixed ability group now, but it's interesting to know what is your teaching situation. And the final quiz question, do you need to look for additional materials to supplement your lesson? So you open your course book, you open activity book, and you feel that you need to look up for something else to supplement, depending on the topic. Most of the answers are yes, half of the answers are sometimes, so, depends on the topic. Well, there are games, you are looking for games. There are lessons which do not need any additional materials, but we also have a number of types of lessons or kinds of lessons when we do have them. The course book Anya based her session on is the new course, primary course by Macmillan Education, Learning Lens. It's aimed at those who have 3 or more than 3 lessons per week, who teach different levels, who spend more than 20 minutes, have to spend more than 20 minutes to prepare one lesson, and who wish to have enough materials for different cases which might happen during the lesson. Very few questions about this new course because it differs from our best-selling course, Academy Stars, in the following things. Macmillan uses every ability approach. In this course book, Anya showed you this icon with 3 petals, and this icon marks activities which use this every ability approach, which means that there is something for everyone. So the activity is possible to be completed by every student in your class, because you can use what you have in the course book, you can use something to support your learners and something for your fast finishers. Another peculiarity is that drilling is crucial for vocabulary, for grammar in primary classroom, and drilling activities are not the ones you need to invent. They are just on the page of the book. Interactive games for speaking and communication. There are speaking activities and there are communicative games on the page of the book. There are 5 videos, different types of videos per unit. And these videos are vocabulary videos, vocabulary song videos, grammar song videos, story videos, real world videos, and real world communication videos. Then assessment for learning, or what we call формувальне оцінювання, they are at the bottom of the page of every lesson, ready-made for you to use. There are plenty of ready-to-use resources, including additional worksheets for grammar, vocabulary, additional worksheets, activities for songs, not only those who are on the page of the book, additional activities for stories. Of course, there are different tests, and these tests are also for every ability. They are on different levels. There are teacher professional development videos, which are useful both for those who are only starting their teaching in primary classroom and for those who are teaching, have been teaching for many years. And there are teacher training videos on different types of interaction, different occasions which are in the classroom. You see teacher training videos and primary teacher professional development videos, and all these videos are available in teachers' resources. And also animations for calming down, focusing, or engaging. These animations are the part of teacher spec. Anya showed you the animation for focusing, and I would like to show you the fragment of animation for calming down, and I'm sure you immediately think about the cases when you need these animations. Sorry, what's going on?
We're going to do some calming breaths. Let's start. Let's sit up. Put your feet on the floor. Put one hand on your belly. We're going to follow the ball with our breath. Breathe in. Breathe out. And see if you can feel your hand moving on your belly.
Again, this is the part of the teacher's resource animations, this kind of animations for focusing the class, for energizing the class, and as in the example, for calming them down before the activity. And I would like to announce that we are going to have a webinar teaching young learners in questions and answers based on this course Learning Lens on the 7th of April. So please join our event if you feel you would like to learn some new information about modern trends and tendencies and issues about teaching young learners. And before we move to our next session, I would like to launch a poll. As you probably know and are used to, we have the possibility to provide you with the free resources to have a taste of different activities, to feel the taste of different types of videos, and all you need to receive these free of charge, absolutely free of charge materials, you need to choose yes. If you are not interested, it's okay to say no. If you probably don't teach young learners, it's surely no. But it is free of charge, and we have this opportunity and desire to bring you or send you. If you are not in Kiev, we are sending it to our representatives in your region. But if you are in Kiev or around Kiev, we are coming to you, bringing these materials for you to have this taste. So I will give you like about a minute, and then we will move to our next session, which is again about teaching primary school learners with from another perspective, not less interesting, not less engaging. So I see that participants are still answering, like 30 seconds more. Mm-hmm. Okay, I see the answers are still coming. Really hope to see all of you on the 7th of April to join us for our questions and answers session about teaching young learners. Well, I see that most of the participants who wanted to receive these materials, they voted. So I end the poll. In case you wanted to vote, but you missed this opportunity, just write to us. And I stop sharing my screen, and with great pleasure, giving the floor to our second speaker, another big friend of Ukrainian teachers. And again, probably you already know Gosha, either in person or at least online. Gosha, I'm really glad and happy to see you, and I'm happy to give all the audience, all the teachers who are present here to you.
Thank you very much, and it's such a pleasure to be here. Like I always, after our sessions, with Ukraine, my mouth just hurts so much because I smile so much, and I'm not even joking. So I always have this big smile. Thank you very much for having me. And speaking after Anya is always, it gives me the feeling of very big shoes to fill, so to speak. But I'm hoping to manage and to also give you some interesting information, and I hope you find it useful. You can use it in your classroom. So I'm going to share my screen. And hello, everyone. I just wanted to say that today I'm trying out a different method of sharing screen. So I hope it goes smoothly. And in the meantime, I will also be changing screens. So if at any point there's a bit of a hiccup, please bear with me and be patient and be forgiving, because I gotta say I'm a little bit stressed, but I am definitely up for a challenge. So let me now. Oh, this is stressful. Okay, let's see how it works. I'm gonna play this and wait, we have to, okay, I'm gonna share a portion of screen and you should see my slides now. So if you could just quickly drop a line in the chat window saying like, everything is fine, we can see it. That'd be lovely because as I said, it's a bit new to me. Okay, I see flashes, I see fine. Thank you very, very, very much. And also make sure that you keep the chat window open because I will be asking you questions. And I always like it when we get a chance to interact, you know. Yeah, like keep your, you know, keyboards ready. So in this session, I'm going to talk about teaching grammar for communication to young learners. And I think the word communication, like I really wish we had some sort of a counter that could count how many times Anya has used the word communication and how many times I'm going to use it. And then we combine it together and we're probably going to have very big numbers. But this is ultimately something that we want, right? Like communication is something that we always hear. And sometimes also when you talk to the parents of the students, you're going to say like, yeah, I want my child to communicate with other people, to speak the language, not to solve tests, right? So this is always something that we're aiming at. But we're going to talk a bit more specifically about grammar for communication. So I hope after the videos from Learning Lands, you're all like relaxed, focused. Let's kick off. And I'm going to start with a couple of questions. Do you ever get excited talking about grammar? And I want you to be very honest. Do you sometimes find yourself in a situation in which grammar excites you? Or like, you know, there's a grammatical topic, you want to talk to everyone about it? If you're very honest, I see some no's, I see some yeses. Sometimes grammar, I personally really like grammar. I love understanding grammar of different languages. But I also understand that it's not always the most exciting topic. And especially when we have to teach grammar, I think a lot of us we're like, okay, we're going to brace ourselves because this might not be very easy. It also depends on like how our students react. But sometimes, you know, when people hear the word grammar, I also teach adult students. And when they hear the word grammar, they panic, you know, reading grammar, no, let's just speak. Okay, the second question. Can you imagine having an argument, a fight about grammar? And in Poland, people love to do it, I gotta say, especially when someone says something on the internet and then there are 20 comments like, oh, you made a mistake, right? So I think we generally like to be picky sometimes, but can you imagine like a big argument or maybe even a scandal related to grammar on a global level, right? So, you know, big names, household names from around the world fighting or not fighting, arguing about the grammar of, let's say, English language. Right? It's a bit abstract, but don't worry, I'm going to explain everything. And it is all related, all these questions are related to a video that I watched the other day. It was a fragment of a documentary, and originally this was not part of my session, but I decided to rewrite some parts of it because I really wanted to include it. So I watched a documentary about a small tribe living in the Amazon and around this region that you can see pinned here. It's Humaita region. I hope I'm not mispronouncing it. And the people are called Pira people. So maybe if some of you are interested in linguistics also, maybe you've heard about it. Because if you haven't heard about Pira people, you might find it interesting that their language sparked a very heated debate among the most prominent linguists, like, you know, like the biggest names in linguistics, like In the middle, you can see Noam Chomsky, like he's, the father of modern linguistics. You also have on the left Steven Pinker, and he is also a famous linguist. He wrote a couple of really interesting books. And the whole debate, the whole scandal, I'm going to use the word scandal, it's a strong word, but I think in our field, it's relevant. It was around a book written by another linguist, Daniel Everett, called Don't Sleep, There Are Snakes. And I am not going to get into, too much detail here because that's, that could take like 3 sessions. But generally, the whole debate revolved around, or revolves, it's an ongoing debate, actually, even though the book is probably like 15 years old now. So it all revolves around Chomsky's concept of so-called universal grammar. And if any of you maybe studied linguistics, or maybe you're interested in linguistics, you might have heard this term universal grammar. So it's just one theory in linguistics that is sort of like a dominant theory. There are some people who disagree, but generally most people say like, okay, that's what it is. And the questions that the linguists would ask themselves is, for instance, is grammar our innate skill? Is it something that like the ability to learn grammar, is it something that we're born with? Is it genetic, or is it something that is just taught by the environment and is just like an abstract concept? And then do people all around the world share the understanding of grammar? Which means like you might speak Ukrainian and you might speak Polish and you might speak English. And of course, like there's different grammar to each language and we execute certain things differently. But in all languages, we can talk about the past, we can talk about the future, we can express similar things. So is it the same for all languages around the world? And also, is it possible to take some aspects of what makes a language, what makes grammar of a language, and still communicate without it? I'm going to leave you with these questions unanswered, mostly because I don't have answers, and many people don't. There are no answers. There are some ideas, so I would like to encourage you to explore them. But I would like us to run a little bit of an experiment, and let's have a look at a sentence. It's not really a sentence, right? But like a couple of words that is created without applying any grammatical rules. So here it comes. I really happy teacher bring puppet lesson. Okay, that's our sentence. And what happened here is I cleared this sentence off the verb tense, right? Also articles, any sort of linkers, conjunctions, and also prepositions. So I just wiped off the grammar of the sentence. And here is a question to you. First of all, if you look at the sentence, I really happy teacher bring puppet lesson. What's the time of the event? Like when did it happen? And if you could write it in the chat window, I'll be opening the chat. Where is my chat? Can't find it. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, so let's see. Someone said the past. I really happy teacher bring puppet lesson. Possibly, right? Do we have any other ideas? When did it happen? Or maybe it, someone said future also. Okay, so the past or the future, present. Okay, so we go the whole spectrum of possibilities here. Perfect. What puppet are we talking about? Is it a puppet that belongs to me? Or is it a puppet that I saw maybe in the classroom? Or what puppet? Yeah, I love what Natalia wrote, like nobody knows. I think Natalia, like you've nailed it, like this is probably the answer to all these questions. But let us have a look at some more. So how are the verbs related to each other? So we have, the verbs. We have the verb bring here, and this is actually the only verb, right? But how the words, I should say, related to each other, right? So am I happy because the teacher brought the puppet, or will I be happy if the teacher is present continuous? Maybe I'm really happy when because we are playing with a puppet, right? As you can see, and again, I'm going to quote Natalia. Natalia, thank you very much. Nobody knows, definitely. But let's play a little game. So I have 3 versions of the sentence, and I have applied some grammatical rules this time. So, you know, by applying these rules, we turn the cluster of words into 3 messages, but all of them have a completely different meaning. So now, let's vote. And without knowing anything else, I would like you to write in the chat window what you think the original meaning of the sentence was or is. Is it A, B, or C? And now you have to, and you can only choose one answer. So we're just going to say statistically, what are you expecting to hear? And I see there are a lot of B answers. All right. All right. All right. I think like from what I've seen, most of you say B, but I also see some A's and C's, right? So I think statistically, probably answer B would be the winning one, but you know, A and C would be close runner-ups. Okay, let's take it a bit further. And now let me give you some more information. So let's imagine that we heard this sentence from Anya. And the day before, Anya brought a puppet to school. They had this, what's it called, show and tell. When children can bring, for example, something, I don't know, their favorite toy, their favorite food, you know, they bring it and then they show their friends. So Anya brought her favorite puppet, and then she got back home and she said, oh no, and she cried a lot. And she said, oh, where are my puppet? No puppet. Now today, she comes back home, she runs to her mom, she jumps at her and she hugs her mom super happy, she's pouring with happiness. And she says, I'm really happy teacher bring puppet lesson. And she's holding her puppet in her hands. And I think we can all agree that it changes a lot. So now we can see that what Anya wanted to say is most likely, I was really happy because the teacher brought my puppet to the lesson, right? She took it to school, she lost it, and today she goes to school and the teacher has her puppet in her hand. So here comes a question. Is communication even possible without grammar? And look at the 2 sentences. I'm really happy teacher bring puppet lesson, and I'm really happy because the teacher brought my puppet to the lesson. And I would say that, yes, communication is absolutely possible without grammar, but only in a very limited way and only to some extent. We can communicate very basic needs, like, for example, water, right? Or, I don't know, happy. And there will be a lot of guessing there, but yeah, very short, very simple messages. That's how children also, as they grow up, like at first when they say their first words, they just kind of point to objects and, you know, shout out single words. But grammar is something that helps us, you know, express these thoughts and feelings and observations about the world around us and our inner world in a way that can be understood. And it can be understood without much guessing, right? We're making ourselves very, very clear. But we are talking about young learners. And the grammar that we teach is like nowhere near the elaborate sentence like, I am really happy because the teacher brought my puppet to the lesson. If my 7-year-old student came up to me and said it, I would be shocked. I'd be like, what has just happened, right? Because the grammar that we teach is closer to the examples you see on the slide, like I can swim, he is tall, or she can't climb, or I am deaf, right? So that is what we're going to be working with for the next year and then slowly, you know, expand it. So how can we, because we're talking about teaching communication, so how can we assure meaningful communication? How can we teach meaningful communication with such a limited grammatical range is a question I would like to answer now. Now, communication happens in context, pretty much always. So the context that we establish is absolutely crucial, especially at the very early stage when, you know, the language, or like the foreign language in our case, is still quite limited. If you think about it, even the native language is still, I mean, it's advanced already, but also quite limited compared to how the adults speak. So if you see a sentence in a book just printed. And the sentence goes, it's my puppet. What message are we getting from this sentence? Without any context, it's just a sentence printed in a book. So if you could write in the chat window, I promise I'm going to engage you a lot. And here I am, keeping my promises. So if there is just a printed sentence, it's my puppet, I wonder what you read from it, right? And let's see what ideas have we got. I think, all right, I see some reactions. I think we can generally agree that the message is purely informative, right? So, I mean, my first thought when I saw it, I was like, yeah, okay, so it's a puppet, like it's a dog, it's a puppet, it's a computer, right? So just inform, we name an object, really. But now let's imagine, let's add some context to it. And now let's imagine that we see a girl or a picture of a girl, it doesn't matter really. And the girl is saying, it's my puppet. So it's the same sentence, but she's in a classroom. And in the classroom, there are other children. And you can see that all of them are crafting their puppets. And the girl is smiling, she's very happy, you know, and she's like, it's my puppet. And also, she's very enthusiastic about it, like moving around. Or if it's a picture, she's like, you know, the children are crafting and sitting, she's standing up. So what I read from it when I have this context is what this girl is really saying is like, I am feeling accomplished due to the fact that I've just made my own puppet in the lesson and I'm very happy with the result. And now I can deal with it when I'm learning. I wonder if you agree with me. This is also what you see. And I think we can all agree on the fact that the sentence you can see below, the elaborate sentence, is not something you're ever going to hear from a 6-year-old. You're not even going to hear it from a 10-year-old, probably, right? But by applying simple grammar and adding context to it, we kind of get a full message without much guessing. It's quite clear, isn't it? So this brings me to the assumption that I am going to repeat a couple of times today, and I want you to remember about it. In my opinion, starting on very early stages, communication is, and this meaningful communication is the combination of like the meaning we give to a sentence by applying grammatical rules, and also the contexts that provide better understanding. So meaning that we add, like, you know, grammatical rules. So we know what, like, you know, who the puppet belongs to, we know when it happened, we know, you know, the relation between the words and the context. So we can also read emotions, we can read the room, so to speak. So I would just sum it up in these words: grammar and context equals meaningful communication. And yeah, and let's have a look a little bit closer at the word context, because I think context is one of these sort of like buzzwords. We use it a lot, we hear it a lot. I use it all the time. I always say how important the context is. But then when someone actually once asked me, it was a friend of mine who's not a teacher, and we were, but he's into linguistics, and we were talking about teaching, education. We both struggle with learning German. So we're talking about it. And he says, like, he asked, like, okay, so, but what is this context to you? So generally, context should bridge the gap between some abstract language and, you know, language rules that we have in our books and the real world usage, which is what we want, isn't it? We have the books to support learning the language, but we want the students to go out there and use it. And without context, language learning would rely mostly and very heavily on memorizing rather than communication. And maybe some of you have similar experiences to me. When I was much younger, as a child, it was in the early 90s. And most of the time in lessons, we had to memorize things. That's why I struggle so much with learning German, because this is usually what I'm expected to do when I get a course book. So that a lot of things that I just have to memorize. And I gotta say, like, because I don't want you to make a mistake here. Like, I don't think that tables and stuff like that, I don't think it's useless. I think it can be very helpful as, like, for example, a cheat sheet, right? Or just to organize certain knowledge that you have. And I also personally like categorizing. But what I'm struggling with here is that I will never, the way I learn, I will never make a link between the word that I see, which is, for example, an, which is to go, and like applying it in a real life situation, because I just memorize, I know how to use this verb in like third person singular. I swear, then I talk to someone and I'm talking about the third person singular and I just can't recall it. It makes no sense to me. And I'm sorry, I jumped a slide. Because in these sentences I've just shown you, they were not even sentences. There was no context. I couldn't make a link between what I see in the book and what I do in real life. And there are different kinds of contexts we can establish, but I wanted to draw attention to 3 kinds of contexts. And the first one is going to be a linguistic context, because these 3 are just interesting for us as teachers of young learners. So if you have a sentence, she ate an apple, the very word ate already tells your students that apple is something they can eat. So whatever you put after she ate an, they already, even without realizing, should know that this is something edible. So, you know, if you say for example, she ate an orange, even if they don't know the word orange, they already narrow down the options to things that can be eaten, right? Of course, you know, there might be some jokes here, but generally hardly ever, right? Like cognitively, like, you know, our brain's like, okay, so something that can be consumed. So that's a linguistic context. Now there's also situational context. So if a child hears, give me the ball, while seeing someone pointing at the ball, then from the situation, from the situational context, the child understands that someone wants this object, right? And maybe with a gesture, pointing and showing, you know, the child, even without knowing the word ball, will clearly understand, okay, so this is the ball, and make the link. And there's also cultural context, which I personally like a lot. And if a child sees a waving hand at the end of the lesson, and the teacher, for example, saying goodbye, they understand what it is, because these are the social norms, right? And in Ukraine, when you, I don't know, leave the classroom, you say goodbye to the teacher. And usually we associate the word goodbye with this gesture, right? So from reading the environment and like from their own cultural experience, they will already know what is being said. And of course, you could teach, for example, the prepositions of place, and you could just have your students memorize them. This is how I learned them, and this is how I was taught these prepositions in German, and I swear I just can't use them. But this is something that I think in the long term would be really counterproductive, because your students will memorize the words, but they will not know how to use them. They will not understand the relationship between the position and the object. And that, for example, if you use the word between, which I'm not sure if I read it correctly, but I understand it's mich, right? If you read it, I mean, if you learn the word between, you also need to put something between 2 other objects. And now, like, if, you know, you have different cases in your language, like, how do you, you know, what form do you use? You know, like, it makes no sense, because you understand the word, but you don't know how to use it, right? And using words in communication and doing it meaningfully is exactly what we want from our students. But look here, same topic, prepositions. And in real life, you would never use a preposition separately. Like in real life, even little children, they don't just point to things, say in, right? They would say, for example, in box, or, you know, on grass, right? When they're learning to talk. So if you put it in a context that is relevant to our children, it will immediately make much more sense to them, because it's relatable, right? So if you use relatable visual aids, like for instance, here we have a playground, all children at some point have been to, are, or will go to a playground, they're familiar with the scenery, right? And they can quickly understand that if there is, let's say, a car, and the car is on the seesaw, right? Because they see the situation, they quickly understand the word on. They don't need to be taught the word to actually understand what it means. And they already see that, you know, there's one object which is on another object. You can't just say the car is on. You can, but it means something else, right? But to our children, they understand that they can't. And then from here, it's very easy to, you know, staying within the context of places that our children, our students are familiar with, you can very quickly arrange, for instance, a puppet hunt in the classroom or anything hunt, maybe, I don't know, egg hunt or whatever, sticker hunt, whatever you have at hand, pen hunt, you know. I actually did it a couple of times when my children really wanted to play something hunt and I didn't have a puppet. So like, okay, so a pencil hunt, right? And they were so excited. So you can also, you know, have a hide and seek game and so on. So the sky's the limit here, right? So you know, switch this, right? You switch this for something that is shown in a meaningful context, and then it's executed in a meaningful context. Now, in order to teach our students grammar, for meaningful communication that means something to them emotionally also, we have to establish the contexts that are relevant. And now I need your help again, and I would like you to write it in the chat window. What contexts do you think, or do you know, are relevant to your young learners? Let's say between the age of 6 and 9. So what topics, you know? Is it going to be, I don't know, the topic of aircraft mechanics? Or is it going to be the topic of writing a business plan? You know, of course, I'm exaggerating now, but I would really appreciate it if you gave me a couple of ideas. Oh yeah, friends, clothes, food, toys, animals, all my favorite topics, you know, friends, food, toys, animals. Sure, right? Any other ideas? Animals is a favorite topic of everyone. And I think there is a reason, you know, cute animal videos are the most popular videos on the internet, always. If you want to have more views on, I don't know, YouTube, you probably have to like include your cat in the video. All right, I see. Clothes, pets, food, right? Yeah, and I absolutely agree with you. So let's have a look at, oh, here, body also. Oh yeah, children, they start to, you know, explore also how their bodies work. Like, oh, wow, I can lift something with my hand and so on. Seasons, oh yeah, like, you know, this time when the winter comes and there's the first snow and the children get just so excited. Like, you know, the lesson is over the moment it starts snowing. Like, this is the moment when I, as a teacher, I want to have a great lesson, but I just give up. I'm like, you know what, they're not going to be focused. I'm just going to give them 15 minutes to enjoy the snow, right? Of course, family, house, school things, excellent, all excellent answers. No one said aircraft mechanics. So I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be an interesting topic for 7-year-olds, not even for like 37 year olds, maybe. Okay. Let's have a look at some contexts that are suggested by Hook. Let's see if they are relevant. And we have people and describing words. So people, generally talking about people, greeting people. Now, this is something, of course, our students will do all the time. Classroom objects. You mentioned school, so I believe this is pretty much the same context. This is my family, so family members, talking about the parents, aunts, brothers, sisters, and whatnot. Feelings, we're going to have a closer look at this one. And action verbs, I can do it. Children love to learn new things and they love to tell everyone what they can do. And of course, these contexts would be slightly different if you were to teach, for example, teenage students. Because with teenage students, instead of classroom objects that they already know, like a pen, pencil, they know it, I would probably go for like electronic gadgets we can use at school, you know, but it's classroom objects. It's just adjusted to the age of the student. But of course, many of these contexts would be universal. And the job that we have to do here is adjust them to the level of the students. Like, we all love talking about food. I could talk about food forever, but the level also has to be relevant. So let's go back to this assumption. In model materials, the context is already provided for you, and it's already well adjusted to the emotional and the linguistic and the cognitive needs of your students of all age groups, right? And it's supported with visuals, with text, with stories. So we also have the course books with relevant grammatical topics that seem natural in certain contexts. because the combination of both also has to make sense. And let me just show you what I mean. Let's show 2 examples. So let's say I want to teach a lesson or can and can't for ability, right? So I can do this, I can't do that. And we have 2 different contexts here. So we have a sports, like nature, sports park, and we have transportation. Which context do you think would be more natural for teaching this grammatical structure? Like, in which context do you think the students will be more likely to communicate with more ease because that's their everyday life? All right, and I see park, games, exactly, nature, park, zip lines, probably not zip lines, but you know, slides, bikes, playground. It makes a lot of sense to me, what you're saying, and I absolutely agree. And thank you for your answers. If you think about it, of course, you could force it a little bit, and you could probably also say things like teach this phrase, this grammatical topic with the context of transport, like I can see a train, I can't see a plane. But then you would probably just have one sentence you would drill, and it's fine to drill. And I actually do agree with Ina with what she said in the break, that drilling is absolutely crucial and it gives a lot of safety. But I can see is becoming a little bit problematic. And I did have a group of students that I sort of like inherited from another teacher. And I remember it was a bit of a problem because they were 7 years old, but they drilled the structure, it's a, and they drilled it like for the whole year, which means that then I got students who kept saying it's a happy, right? So, you know, I would say, yes, let's drill, but let's do it, you know, in a real life, in more like, in situations that make more sense in real life, because you can say, oh, a train can go fast, or, you know, I can drive a car. Children don't drive cars, right? So of course it makes much more sense to talk about, you know, sports, activities, something that our students do a lot. So here's the next question. I'm asking a lot of them today, but I'm hoping to keep you energized. So how about this? We have this context of transportation, and also you can see I added some vocabulary that occurs in this context. What grammatical structure do you think we could teach here? And there is no one correct answer. I'm happy to see your ideas because, you know, there's one idea that I have, but yeah, but maybe you have other. Okay, so we have, there is a car, there are bicycles. You could do it, of course. How many? Yes, 2 yellow buses and a red lorry, yellow lorry, right? So 1 red lorry, right? Oh, present continuous, they are cycling. Yeah, sure. So you can do it to describe the picture and so on. But I was thinking about something that the children, the language that the children are likely to experience in their native language, in real life, in the context of streets. And I agree with Tamara. Tamara said, don't. And I agree. I really like the context of imperatives here, because, you know, this is something that we teach children from a very young age, like don't cross the streets on the red light, right? Don't run in the street, and so on, right? Look left, look right, walk, stop. The children will hear this language all the time in the street. Like we don't even realize, but like we're walking with a child and there is a red light and we say, okay, stop, right? And you would say, oh, wait, don't go, right? Or don't play there because maybe there are some dogs running free and you're a little bit worried. But there is something I found on the internet yesterday. I swear I added it to the presentation yesterday because, and it's about the context and it's about how our children can surprise us with like what things are important in what context. And let me just share. In 2015, Swindon police apologized for using their sirens unnecessarily on a residential street. They were trying to settle a debate among a group of 4-year-olds as whether the noise of the police car is whoo or yeah. So you see, I guess we can really get surprised by what excites our students in the context, and it can turn out that, you know, that we can also practice the phrase like, I don't know, the fire truck goes "Wee-oo" in the context of transportation. Why not? Okay, so now I would like to have a look at 3 classroom tested ideas, and I really like to share the ideas and show you how I do things, or how I would play with my students to teach and practice grammar with a focus on communication rather than just memorizing abstract rules. All right, so we're gonna forget about memorizing rules, we're gonna make it fun, and we're gonna make it meaningful. And all of the games I'm going to show you, all 3 games are very simple games, so you may even know them, or maybe you know a variation of them, or like a different version of them. But I think, first of all, there is no need to always come up with new stuff. I think there's no need to, as they say, reinvent the wheel. I think it's actually quite valuable if we take very simple games that we know our students like, and maybe just change them a little bit to ensure meaningful communication. All right. So, you know, I don't think we always have to come up with fireworks. I think very often less is more. So I like to rely on the book, rely on the context provided by the course book, rely on the, you know, activities and the stories provided by the course book, and then game bank, my best friend. And then I like to add a twist to that to make sure it's adjusted to the level and the needs, the communicative needs of my students. So we're gonna now focus on executing grammatical exercises in a meaningful way so the students can meaningfully communicate. And the first idea is called Grammar Spy. If you've seen some of my past sessions, I have mentioned this game before, but this time I am going to change it just a little bit. So even if you're familiar with it, that's fine, bear with me. And also, I'm pretty sure that a lot of you know the game I Spy with My Little Eye, or maybe I Spy with My Bug Eye, if you know what I'm talking about, which is very often used to practice vocabulary. But of course, it can also be used to practice grammar, and we're going to use it to practice grammar in communication. And I think it's very important what Anya mentioned in her session towards the end, that there is a difference between speaking and communication. So I'd like you to bear it in mind. We're not going to do just speaking. We're going to do speaking for communication, grammar for communication. So we're going to communicate, make our students communicate. So the target structure that I chose as an example is the verb to be. And more specifically, it's I'm, he's, and she's. And my students, like at the time we do the exercise I'm about to show you, my students have already seen the structure in the context of the unit, in the context of the lesson. In this case, in a story, we have already listened to the story, we've played a little bit with the story, asked and answered some questions, they have also read it, they have seen it. So it's not completely new to them. And also they have, at this point, practiced it in various ways. We worked in the activity book, like, you know, they've had their fair share of practice. It does not mean they have mastered it, but it means they're already familiar with it. It's not something they're hearing for the first time. So now I want to take this and I want to turn it into a more spontaneous information exchange and challenge them in a more real life sort of like real life communication. Okay, so I'm gonna arrange a real life scenario for them. And the context here for this verb is meeting friends and greeting and getting to know, greeting them, getting to know each other, which is something that children experience, of course, all the time, not only on the first day of school, when they meet their peers, but also if they go to a playground, maybe they go to a birthday party, maybe, you know, they visit their family in the summer, and there are also spring break, and there are also some new children there. So what you need for this exercise is just like either some scrap paper. So, you know, I'll just take scrap paper, make a roll, right? So you have a lunette. Or you can also use, I don't have it at hand, but you can use the paper towel roll, you know, the longer one, if you have it, if you use it. But what I love about it is that the children can also just use their hands, make a lunette, and we're all set. So that's all you need. So low prep, no prep, which is my favorite. And now, have the students sit in a circle, and there is one student that stands in the middle. Now, students are going to, remember the structure we practice, you can see it on the slide. Now, the students are going to take turns. I will probably touch their shoulder to indicate whose turn it is, to say sentences just like in the grammar box. And at first, I would limit it to just introducing yourself. So I'm Beth, right? I'm Tom, I'm Anya. Let's add something that they're likely to hear in the real life. Hello, I'm Beth. Hello, I'm Anna. Hello, I'm Tom. So once again, we have a student in the middle with a lunette, children sitting around them. When the child feels, me tapping their shoulder, they have to say, hello, I'm Jana. Now, the student with the lunette can only look through the lunette. They have to just quickly look around, probably spin around, and, point to the person, focus, on the person who said it. Now, when they do, they put down their lunette and they reply by saying, hello, Jana, Tom. Just it. And then they swap places. So then Jana is in the middle. Jana has a lunette. And Jana hears Kasia saying like, hello, I'm Kasia. So Jana has to spin around, find Kasia, put down the lunette and say, I'm Jana, or hello, Kasia, I'm Jana. Now, this is the first step, but you can see that there's already the exchange of information happening, right? So it's telling you my name and introducing myself and saying hello and hearing it back. So I'm going to, at some point, include a little bit more grammar here, because as you can see, our target language is not just I'm Beth, I'm Tom, I'm Jana, but it's also he's tall, or she's small, she's 6, he's 7. So we also have the third person singular, and I want to make sure that my students also practice it. So let's challenge them even further. So this time we are also in the circle, and one student is standing in the middle and is holding the lunette. Now this time I'm going to say a name of one student from our class, for example, Jana, and then the student has to point to Jana again, right? So they're going to have to spin around a little bit, because really, like, try to do it. The vision is really limited. And if you have tiny little hands like children, then the vision is very limited. It's not so easy. So the student points the lunette to Jana and says, like this time, instead of introducing himself, he says, she's my friend, she's tall. All right. And then you see what happens here, like we're adding a little bit more, but because we want more communication, not just speaking, Jana is going to reply, he's my friend, he's funny. And then they swap, right? So you see what we're doing here, like the children are already familiar with the whole process of like searching through the lunette, like this is already easy for them and they know how to do it. At first, we just introduce ourselves. Then there is a little bit more spontaneous communication because they have to decide how to describe their friend. And of course, you might want to support them because maybe your students would need to see, the picture on the flashcard, like happy, sad, tall, small, right? Or funny. Maybe at first you want to show them word cards if they already read. Or maybe you just want to show the emotion, right? Or show like with a gesture and you want to support them this way. You don't have to, but you can easily adjust it to the level of your students and you can give them more support at the beginning, a little bit less at the end. And you have a lot of drilling, but at first easier, but then a bit more challenging. Okay. The reason I like this game is because it has the elements of fun and mystery. I always wanted to be a detective. I love detective stories and, everything from like Mickey Mouse to Sherlock Holmes. So I really like to add this element of mystery in my lessons. Children love it. I love it. So it's a win-win. But also fun. There's some TPR, there's some moving, and there's a challenge. Tiny little heads that have to spot the friend. I'm telling you, try it right now. Your cameras are off, try it. It's not so easy. Do this and try to spot maybe the Macmillan logo in the slide. And you say it's not so easy. But I also like this game a lot because it makes my student create very short yet meaningful dialogue, meaningful exchanges. And remember, we're talking about children who are 6 or 7 years old here at this point, maybe even 8, doesn't matter, but they're very little. And this is the time when they start to, or are in the process of like, noticing like that they're individuals, noticing their independence, their uniqueness, right? So they're very happy to say like, I'm tall, but you're short, right? Or I'm short, but you're tall, and so on. And this game can, of course, be used for many different grammatical structures where, for example, there is a dialogue. Okay, actually, let's start with the one on the left. The structure is, this is my grandma, that's your grandma. And also, Aya mentioned this very same structure in her session. So now you can also see, maybe you can connect it together, maybe you can blend it together. Right, so you have one child, children sitting next to each other, and with the lunette, they're going to look at, to pictures and say, "This is my grandma. Ah, that's your grandma." And then they are going to exchange information. Or, for example, one student points to their picture and says, "Here," and the other student has to point the lunette and say, like, "This is your uncle," right? And say, "Yes, this is my uncle." Right? So again, you can also do it for spotting objects, right? Classroom objects, food, you're going to have a dialogue like, one child asked questions like, what is it? Yes. And then you have, is it, and trying to find this object with a lunette in the classroom and go, is it blue? No, it isn't. Okay. Is it red? Yes, it is. Is it an apple? No. Okay, I'm searching for more red things. Oh, is it a pen? Yes, it is. Super simple. The only thing I do here is I take the dialogues I already have in the book, or I take the structure and the sentences I already have in a book, and I have my students use them to talk about themselves while looking through the lunette. That's all. That's it. And I think sometimes it's very easy to forget, well, at least to me, and I'm going to be very honest about it, that meaningful communication doesn't have to mean exchanging, specific descriptions of feelings and detailed observations. Meaningful communication is communication that makes sense in a given context and that helps children exchange even very basic information, express themselves. And I think it is true that even a very short dialogue, hi, I am Gosha, hi, I am Inna, nice to meet you, hello, I'm Gosha, hello, Gosha, I'm Inna. This is already communication. We're talking about very little children here, right? So this is already something they know from their life. It has a meaning for them. They can relate to it. Therefore, they communicate in a meaningful way, right? I have another game for you, and it's called Lukewarm Chairs. Now, you might have heard about the game called Hot Chairs. So this is a game that in Poland is very often played at weddings, but also in a language classroom. So you have, let's say, 10 children, but only 10 chairs. They stand up, you play the music, they walk around the chairs, you take one chair away. So now you have 10 students, 9 chairs. And then when you stop the music, they have to run to a free chair. Whoever's left without it loses. And then we continue until there's the final winner. Now, I call this game lukewarm chairs, lukewarm chairs, so not hot, lukewarm. Because I don't want winners and losers in this game. I want a lot of communication with this TPR/fun factor. So I'm not going to be taking away any chair. My aim is to practice as much as I can, for my students, practice as much as they can in the most meaningful way. So here's the context for the lesson. I choose feelings, and I don't think there's anything more relevant to all of us than feelings, like both children and adults. Like we always the first thing you say when you meet someone is, how are you? And usually people say, I'm fine, I'm happy, oh, I'm good, I'm having a good day. We talk about our feelings all the time. It's such a natural thing to do. And at the very young age, children are still learning to understand, to name, to identify their feelings, to express their feelings. And they experience a whole wide range of them. Not all of them can be named, but children also tend to exaggerate with the gestures, like, I'm so angry. right? So they're learning how to sort of like how to talk about these feelings and how to name them. Okay, so when we talk about feelings, I think the most natural grammar for this context, something that would naturally come to the students, no matter their age really, but let's talk about young learners, would be the verb to be, right? I am happy, I am hungry, I am thirsty, I am sad, oh, she isn't happy, right? So, so let's deal with it. It makes a lot of sense here. So let's keep it real life. And what I'm going to do here is, surprise, surprise, again, I want to put the chairs in a circle. I do very often arrange chairs like that in my classroom. I like circle games a lot, and, you know, like I'll play, you know, when I had bigger groups, I used to play a lot, especially for very big classes. I saw that some of you teach very big classes. I always go for a circle. Chairs, floor. Here we need a chair. We need chairs, plural. Okay, so let's start very simply. I pick one student who has to stand up, stand in the middle of the circle. So this time, actually, we have 10 students, 9 chairs. Okay, so you have one student standing in the middle who has no chair, and the student has to say how they feel. For instance, I'm thirsty. And if there's any other student who also feels is feeling thirsty, they have to stand up and say, I'm thirsty too, right? Or me too. I like them to use whole sentences because I want to practice the structure, I am thirsty. So I'm thirsty too. And then what they do is they are just going to, no, sorry, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. There are just as many chairs as students. Sorry, I got confused. So what they're going to do is they're going to switch places, right? I'm so sorry. I don't know why I said that. Take away one chair. Clearly, I don't in this game. So once again, you've got a student who stands up, says, I'm thirsty. And if there's any other student who is thirsty, they stand up and then they switch places. Now, it might happen that there will be more students who are thirsty, so suddenly you have 5 students standing up. It's fine, they can still find a new seat, right? It's not a problem, right? So however many students are going to stand up, you're still going to have enough seats. So in this case, again, let me stress it because I said something wrong. I am not taking away any chairs. And the reason I got confused is because I am going to take away chairs in the next round. So I'm going to elevate it a bit, and I am going to practice questions like, are you sad? No, I'm not. Are you happy? Yes, I am. I just take an exercise from the book. I really like if you just point with a finger and ask, you know, so there's some visual support. You practice, you drill the same structure, but you do it multiple times. And so short exchanges in pairs, it's already communicating. You're asking questions, you're getting answers. And then we're going to take the same game, lukewarm chairs again. But this time I am going to take away one chair. And that's why I made a mistake, because it's now when I take away the chair. So first I would watch a video with my students. In this video, you can see the dialogue. There's a girl and probably her dad, but maybe a brother, who knows? And the dialogue goes like, are you hungry? No, I'm not. Are you thirsty? Yes, I am. Are you hot? Yes, I am. Are you tired? No, I'm not. I'm happy. And the girl, as she speaks, she's really, like, she exaggerates the feelings. So, you know, are you thirsty? Yes, I am. Are you hot? Yes, I am. So that's actually what I want my students to do. Again, we have a circle of chairs and we have one chairless student in the middle. The student comes up to one person and asks the question, are you hungry? And the child who's being asked the question has to reply, yes, I am, no, I'm not. Now, if they reply, no, I'm not, we keep asking questions. So the students stay there until they hear the answer yes. So, are you hungry? No, I'm not. Are you thirsty? No, I'm not. Are you hot? If they say, yes, I am, they also have to gesture. So, are you hungry? No, I'm not. Are you thirsty? No, I'm not. Are you hot? Yes, I am. And then they swap places, and then there is a student in the middle, and they continue. So the thing here is that, to my experience, hardly ever will we have a student who would say, yes, I am, right at the beginning. You know, they probably want to say like, oh, no, I'm not, no, I'm not. They might actually say, no, I'm not to all questions. And then, well, they are just going, there are no more questions. They're just gonna, you know, change places anyway. So yes, the teacher have to navigate it, but I always encourage my students to say really how they feel and show how they feel. So that's it. And you can also use this game for other meaningful dialogues that you can play around with. So for instance, here we have to, you know, describe the looks of the person and guess who it is. So again, my students will watch a video, and then I'm gonna also arrange the chairs in the circle. It's still the same game, but I'm gonna ask my students to sit back so they don't see the person in the middle. And they're going to take turns asking the person in the middle, have you got long hair? No, I don't. So the next person, have you got blonde hair? Yes, I have. And then if they hear yes, I have, they swap places and we have a new student, right? Super simple activity, but look how much exchange there is. Look how much real life context there is. Games, children thrive in games. So I really want to stress it again because we're going to have to be wrapping up. Communication can be very, very meaningful, even with very, very simple grammar, as long as the context is relevant and as long as the situations we create in the classroom are something that the children have experienced before they can relate to. So, you know, as soon as you have your students communicate or exchange messages, no matter how simple, they're already communicating. Right? So you can really focus on communication from the very first day. Communication doesn't mean elaborate sentences. It means I feel something, I communicate it, and you understand me and you reply, right? However, sometimes verbally or sometimes by giving me a hug. This is communication, right? So if you combine all these things we've talked about today, then you're going to end up with hopefully a lot of very like a lot of children very eager to communicate because they will understand it, they will feel it's relevant, and they'll be excited to do it because they do it anyway in real life. And unfortunately, we kind of have to be wrapping up. So I was hoping to maybe show you one more exercise, but I guess it will have to wait for the next session. But there is something, the one more thing that I find really, really important and I really want to draw attention to. And I have to go a couple of slides back just to give you an example. So just give me a moment if you could be so kind. Okay, let's do it here. So we talked about the prepositions of place, and we talked about teaching them, and you can see how my students get to know the prepositions of place. They get to know them by a story, by a comic, right? And I think it's extremely important to remember that if your focus of the lesson is vocabulary, you will not start by writing the words on the board and telling children ball, right? Ball, and then not showing them a picture or anything. Like, you're always going to set the context. You're always going to show them a big picture. You're going to bring some props. You're going to perhaps you're going to bring some I don't know, realia. This is natural. And if your focus is reading, you're not just going to hand out the text and go like, okay, read the story, right? You're going to first create the mood. You're going to talk about the characters. You're going to look at the pictures around the story. This is natural. We know that this is going to help our students understand. So if your focus is grammar, start by teaching it, by showing it in a communicative context in multiple ways. And I think that's the most important thing. If you present the grammar in the context that already have a lot of, like, show a lot of communication, and if the context is relevant, and if the same communication happens in our students' native language, you will end up actually teaching teaching grammar for this communication. This grammar will be something that will allow our students, that will let them and help them and enhance this natural communication between them. So let's remember the message of this session. I really want you to remember that grammar is extremely important, but it's not just grammar. We need grammar to give the meaning to the words, but we also need context to give the meaning to grammar. So then we end up with meaningful communication. And I strongly believe that as long as you keep it at the forefront of your mind and you establish relevant context, you provide a lot of opportunities. Observe your students, look how they play in real life, steal games from them. I steal games from them, you know, just like during the recess, just observe them, just look what they play, right? And as long as you do it, and as long as you create the context in which the students can, even in a very simple way, comment on the reality through games, through dialogues, through role plays, through watching videos or whatnot, you're already doing a great job developing their communicative skills, and you're definitely teaching grammar for communication. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure as always. Thank you very much for being so active in the chat window. I really love it. Like, you know, getting all the ideas, and it's very important to me because I can't see you in person. Hopefully I will soon, but for now it's online. So thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. It means a lot to me.
Gosha, thank you very much. I love this bunch of ideas every time you are sharing with our teachers. I'm fascinated by how you give new breath and new life to a very simple and very old activities like I Spy.
And if I may just comment on that, I think it's really important, and I would like everyone to hear this message from me. I personally believe that really we don't always need to come up with new things. There are things, every child loves, I don't know, playing tag, right? If they love it, let's use it, right? Let's not reinvent the wheel. You already have a bunch of good games. Just change the focus, maybe. Sorry, and I'm going to be quiet because I could talk about it forever.
Gosha, thank you very much. Just few words for our participants, important words. First of all, as you have vividly shown, Academy Stars is a course with a very strong grammar syllabus, but it doesn't mean that grammar is like a dead thing in the book. Grammar is very communicative in this course, but it is one of the strongest things of this course book, Academy Stars. And this course does not need some special or extra presentation because it is the bestseller, and teachers claim that it is the best and the strongest course book for young learners which are now in our market. I would like to remind everyone that you will receive the recording, and you, of course, will receive the certificate, but not today. It will happen within the 7 days, so don't wait for a certificate today. Thank you, Gosha, once again for being so energetic, so emotional, and so sharing, and full of ideas, very practical and very easy. Thank you, dear colleagues, for your very active participation and this very warm chat box with lots of smileys, with lots of thanks and expressions of gratitude to everything you, Gosha, did for us today. To finish our conference and close it, I would like to say the words I usually say in the very end. Please stay safe, stay strong. Let's do our job. And by doing our job, we are approaching the victory of our country and approaching peace on our land. So please take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.